Today the youth are sharing that God is calling each of us to a mission, and it is up to us to accept that mission and make it possible. My calling may not have been as dramatic as an action movie, but I'd like to share some of it with you this morning. Looking back at my life before I joined the church, my faith was non-existent. I never had that bond with God. You know, the one you can just start talking to out of the blue, or simply knowing that someone's there to comfort you 24/7. I always thought my life was just dandy the way it was. School was going great, and I had my family and friends to look upon for comfort and advice. What more could I ask for? Well, about 5 years ago, my parents enrolled my sisters in a vacation Bible school here at Page Memorial. They were in need of volunteers, so I figured I'd take the initiative to help out. In doing this, I took on the role of being a group leader for the first and second grade division. I remember in one particular Bible story time, the question was asked, "How many of you attend church?" I stared in awe as I witnessed every little hand in the room go up. Not only was I embarrassed, but I was disappointed in myself. I went home later that night, and I told my parents about what happened, and that we needed to get back into the habit of going to church. My parents sat me down and questioned me about my faith, and whether or not I believed in God, but I was unsure of myself. After discussing it more and having my parents make arrangements at work, we found ourselves attending church regularly. We found Page to be a warm and welcoming church, and the congregation treated us as though we were already a part of the family. It didn't take too much longer before we officially became members of the church. In doing this, I became an active participant in youth, food pantry, soup kitchen, and other church activities. But I had just started grasping the concept of this whole God thing. I received a calling a few years back to go out of the country doing mission work. And let me just begin by saying that trip was by far a life-changing experience for me. Honestly, I could sit here talking to you guys for hours upon hours upon hours on end about what it was like to live out the culture of a Salvadorian for a week. There was definitely no living the life of luxury. Just being able to witness the amount of poverty and unsanitary living conditions was just completely devastating. There were children without shoes, babies without diapers, people sick and left without any medical care, and women having to beg for the slightest bit of change. Wow. We never really stopped to think how much we take for granted. While I was there, we helped construct a building beside the United Methodist Church for Sunday school use, and passed out food bags to families in a smaller underprivileged city known as La Providencia. I also had the opportunity to talk with these people and pray with them. I could not believe that even though our lives were so different, they had so much to offer. Though some of these people had gone through so much, not once have they lost hope. The smile on every single person's face there was enough to make me want to cry. To think I might have just made a huge impact on one of those families. To live out this journey was not only a learning experience for me, but breathtaking. It undeniably changed my perspective of things. It really just opened my eyes and provoked me to think about the life God had given me. A life of doubt and fear, sin and shame, and joy and happiness. I began to grow closer with God and seeing Him in my life, and that's when things started taking a turn for the worse. On December 8th, 2011, I found out the most devastating news no one looks forward to hearing. That was the day my dad was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. I remember thinking to myself, why? Why is this happening to my family? You know, after trying to cope with this, I began to get mad and frustrated with God. I felt as though anything I had said or done wasn't being seen or heard, almost as though I was alone. I knew my dad didn't deserve any of this, neither did my family. It wasn't too long after my dad's diagnosis that Pastor Jane preached a sermon one Sunday entitled, "Why Bad Things Happen to Good People." It was then I began to understand that God never meant for any of this to happen. It wasn't that he wanted us to suffer through this, but to grow closer with him. I look at it now as a wake-up call. I felt like throughout those next 3 months, my bond with God went from being very faint to knowing I have that additional person I can talk to and rely on. Seeing my dad go through chemo, radiation, and surgery wasn't easy for me, but throughout all of it, it taught me a valuable life lesson: not to lose hope. I was terrified of what the future was going to hold for him, but Jeremiah 29:11 states, "For I have the plans I have for you, declare the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future." It was time I took the path God wanted for my life. This is when I got called into mission for the second time. In 2013, I went back to El Salvador. This trip was more memorable than my last because my mom was there to experience it all with me. For the two of us to go, it required a lot of money we didn't have a lot of. I helped organize a lot of fundraising activities to make sure we could go. It gave us time to get away from the chaos at home and focus more towards dedicating our time to God's work. We continued on with the building we started my first time there. I felt like the bond between my mom and I grew stronger. I never really had a great relationship with my mom, and since my dad's diagnosis, things never got any better. I enjoyed my time spent with her, and being given the second opportunity to travel out of the country to help those that are less fortunate. It was the 2013 pilgrimage youth trip where I decided to give my life to Christ. I never would have expected it to take this long, but I will choose the life I'm living now over the life I had before God was a part of me any day. It just goes to show that not everyone grows in Christ at the same pace. It took me 17 years before I gave my life to Him. It took me 17 years before I gave my life to Him. And just because I'm a Christian, that doesn't make me perfect. I'm a human being if you hadn't already noticed. I'm going to sin and make mistakes in my life. But it only encourages me to do better in the future. I'm going to close my story with the lyrics of one of my favorite songs. Some of you may recognize it. You shine, brighter than the brightest star. Your love, purer than the purest heart. You shine, filling us with courage and strength to follow you. I hope all of you can put these words into consideration and just know that it's never too late for a transformation to happen in your life. Thank you.